Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring the fascinating, incredibly complex web of conquests, innovations, and massive cultural shifts that completely define medieval India. We're looking at an era of unparalleled ambition, towering architectural marvels, and sweeping dynastic changes that literally reshaped the entire subcontinent.
But before we get bogged down in the specific names, dates, and battles, I want you to really think about this underlying question. We're tracing the origins of an empire that completely transformed a region. So how exactly did a series of foreign invaders, and in several pretty remarkable cases formerly enslaved military commanders, manage to build, maintain, and expand an empire that shaped India for over 3 centuries? It's like this massive, incredible historical puzzle of administration and sheer willpower.
To solve that puzzle, we'll navigate this history in waves. Here's our agenda. 1. Early invasions and conquests. 2. The foundation of the Delhi Sultanate. 3. The Khilji Revolution. 4. The Tughlaq experiments. And finally, 5. The Sayyids and Afghan Lodis.
All right, starting off with Section 1, Early Invasions and Conquests, the Catalyst.
So, this rapid escalation all started with regional conquests. Back in 712 CE, Muhammad bin Qasim actually managed to take control of Sind after a few previous failed attempts. And then, well, the intensity just skyrocketed. Between 1001 and 1027 CE, Mahmud of Ghazni led a staggering 17 relentless expeditions into India, plundering super wealthy cities and temples like Somnath. But it was Muhammad Ghori in 1192 CE at the Second Battle of Tarain who defeated the king of Delhi, Prithviraj Chauhan. By capturing Delhi and Ajmer, Ghori laid the actual permanent foundation for Muslim rule in India.
Moving right along to Section 2, Foundation of the Delhi Sultanate, the first wave. Now, because Muhammad Ghori had no son to inherit his throne, he basically left the door wide open for his commanders. And you know what? The foundation they ended up building in Delhi was remarkably resilient. It held strong for exactly 320 years. That's from 1206 all the way to 1526 CE.
And across those 3 long centuries, power would shift between just 5 distinct ruling families or dynasties. Just 5. This created a really fascinating rhythm of rise, reform, rebellion, and eventual fall that we're going to track today.
If we map out this timeline, you can see the era kicks off with the Slave or Ilbari dynasty, moving all the way through the Khiljis, the Tughlaqs, the Sayyids, and finally to the Afghan Lodis right before the Mughals arrive on the scene.
And nothing brilliantly illustrates the legacy of the very first ruler of that very first dynasty quite like this. Meet Qutbuddin Aibak. Aibak was a former slave, which, by the way, is exactly why it's called the Slave or Mamluk dynasty, who rose up to become India's first Muslim king. He was famous for his immense generosity, which earned him the nickname Lakbaksh, or Giver of Lakhs. He laid the literal groundwork for the empire, beginning construction on this towering architectural marvel, the Qutb Minar in Delhi. His work was actually cut short when he died suddenly from falling off a horse while playing polo. Yeah, really. But his legacy? Completely set in stone.
But Aibak was just the start. He was followed by some true rule breakers who really solidified this new empire. You had Iltutmish, who's widely considered the real founder and true consolidator, organizing the vital land grant and currency systems. Then there was his remarkable daughter, Razia Sultan. She completely defied all the gender norms of the era to become the first and only female Muslim ruler of medieval India. Talk about a trailblazer. And later, we see Balban, a ruler who demanded absolute submission. I mean, he separated the military and finance departments and even introduced a prostration ritual, literally declaring the king as the shadow of God on earth, just to keep those ambitious nobles in check.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Khilji Revolution, the second wave.
Now, this transition wasn't just a simple change in leadership. No, it was an absolute revolution. The Khiljis completely broke the mold. They totally shattered the racial dictatorship of the Turkish nobles who had, up until then, exclusively hoarded all the power. By opening up the power structure to broader participation for non-Turkish Muslims, the Khiljis brought a massive flood of new cultural influences into the court and the administration, effectively changing the political dynamics of medieval India forever.
The most famous Khilji, Alauddin, matched his absolutely ruthless military conquests, like taking the ridiculously rich kingdom of Gujarat, which is actually where he acquired his famous slave-turned-general Kafur, with incredible architectural ambition. Just look at this breathtaking Alai Darwaza, a stunning archway he added to the Qutb complex. He even took on the title of the Second Alexander. That right there shows you just how highly he viewed his own expansive rule.
Next up, Section 4. The Tughlaq Experiments, the third wave.
Here's the thing. Massive empires are incredibly hard to maintain. But stepping up to try, Ghiyas-ed-Din Tughlaq founded the dynasty. He was a highly capable ruler who rejected the old, restrictive land measurement systems, built a massive and much-needed famine relief policy for farmers, and constructed this incredible, imposing, fortified city of Tughlaqabad. He essentially gave a completely new, much heavier style to the architecture of the Sultanate period.
His successor, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, however, well, he took a far more eccentric approach. Look at these wild swings. First, he decides to literally move the entire capital from Delhi all the way south to Dalatabad just to control the south better. Then he realizes he can't actually control the north from down there, so he forces everyone to move right back. While trying to manage this vast empire, he wildly experimented with token currency, introducing bronze coins with the exact same value as silver. Obviously, that didn't go great. But hey, he also innovated in some pretty positive ways, like creating a brand new government department entirely dedicated to agriculture.
Trying to stabilize the realm after those incredibly turbulent experiments, the next ruler, Firoz Shah Tughlaq, pivoted entirely. He banned cruel punishments and turned his focus towards civil works. He founded numerous new cities and sought to beautify his new capital of Firozabad by meticulously transporting massive ancient Ashokan pillars, like the one you see here, all the way from places like Ambala and Meerut.
So, the absolute crucial point to remember about Firoz Shah is this pivot to a much more benevolent style of governance. Recognizing that the people were completely overwhelmed, he famously abolished 23 separate, highly burdensome taxes that had been plaguing the population. 23. He basically wiped his slate clean, replacing them with just 4 simple, structured taxes based strictly on Islamic principles. It was a massive economic reset for the empire.
And that brings us to Section 5. Sayyids and Afghan Lodis, the final waves. Eventually, the Tughlaq power waned. A powerful Central Asian conqueror named Timur actually invaded, and as a reward for his services, he gave a man named Khizr Khan governorships in the region. Khizr Khan used this to start the Sayyid dynasty back in 1414. But after a brief, relatively capable start, the Sayyids claimed independence but very quickly lost control. Their highly ineffective successors basically rolled out the red carpet for a brand new ethnic and cultural influence to enter the chat, the Afghans, via the Lodi dynasty.
The Lodis, starting with Bahlul, brought some much-needed stability back to the empire after years of decline. But it was his successor, Sikandar Lodi, who really brought the innovation. He brilliantly overhauled the economy by setting up a highly efficient new coinage system, and he introduced strict auditing of accounts to finally stamp out corruption. To help out the farmers and ensure fairness, he created the Ghazi Sikandari, a super-accurate standard measuring scale for fields. And, perhaps most significantly for the architectural future of India, in 1504 he actually founded the city of Agra.
By the end of the Lodi rule, the Sultanate had endured and evolved for over 3 centuries, which leaves us with this final thought. This 320-year dynastic wave fundamentally built the administrative, economic, and architectural infrastructure of medieval India. But as the year 1526 approaches, an entirely new storm is brewing on the horizon. What happens when the formidable Mughals arrive at their doorstep, ready to test absolutely everything they've built? I'm going to leave you to ponder that question. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the history around you.